Because what I have noticed in my life and people's life, we tend to follow patterns. For example, I had an uncle who had piles 10 times. 10 times he was operated. It's a horrible disease. Because he would consume all the hot stuff. Like he would smoke a lot, he would drink a lot of chai, and he would eat very spicy food. Whatever the doctor told him to do, he will do the opposite. And again, when he is having the surgery, he will make promises that I will never do this again, I will have a healthy life. But he will end up doing the same thing. Same thing when we are in relationships. We go through a lot of shit, lot of pain. The relationship breaks, we blame the person, and then we go into a new relationship. We do the same things, same result happen, and then people say that how come with all the people I go, the result is the same. With whatever relationship I am in, it leads to pain. Basically, what they are doing is people have changed, but as an individual, my patterns have not changed. And instead of seeing that, I put the blame on the external. It can be a person, or it can be that situation, what we call societal pressure or anything. So do you feel that happens in your life? Because in my life it happens for sure. Like most of the time, whatever sufferings I have had, either it is in terms of physical suffering or mental suffering, it is because I choose to ignore the patterns. I choose to ignore the habits. That I choose to accept that I'm slave of my habits. And because I'm not accepting it, I'm not making an effort to reframe it or like to restart again. How do you feel about that?
Sure. Yeah, I think it's very relatable because first is patterns dictate our lives, and patterns are like some of it is genetic. Some of us have some issues which are very genetical, but only when you are aware of it can you override them. So awareness is the key. So the point of awareness is to let you know that there is a problem here. Then after you recognize the problem, now it's your choice to either act on it or ignore it, right? Most of us choose to, we don't want to confront the problem because now there is a lot of effort involved, because we know there is a dirty room. I don't want to even enter the room because I know if I enter I need to end up cleaning it. So what I do is just close the door, shut it, and move around in different places. But deep down in my background, I know there is a pending work I need to do. Just because I'm not attending to it doesn't mean it gets solved, right? Like there has to be somebody who needs to go for it and solve it. And the worst part is it only gets worse. It only gets even more worse over time, and we feel that by ignoring it will eventually go away. But the reality is it will get worse. So once you see that this pattern, me escaping from a pattern, is going to create a deeper problem than solving it. And once you see it in real, for real, and for you to see it for real, you need to experience the pain, right? Like no book or nobody can teach you. You need to make this mistake of, experiencing the pain and all of it. So once that happens, of course, you see the pattern, then you expect the issue to be something else, and then the analysis of the problem. You expect it was caused because of that, and then you start a blame game. This again distracting from the actual problem to be solved, because the mind is not wanting to solve a problem. It will, even though you have addressed and seen it, it is now finding blame as an excuse. So it can have many different layers as excuses, right? One is blame, one is regret, one is just fear of avoidance, and so many. We all know the tricks. But again, to know the tricks, you need to kind of go through the pain. So that's like a paradox. But so once you see it, and then you see the inevitability of your life not going ahead because of that problem, and you see the logical contradiction that exists there, then as a rational human, the first thing you need to do is basically give more attention to that problem, stay with the problem. Then you can exactly reason out, analyze what was the cause of this problem, how did it get created, and then you can have a map to solve that problem. Then you break that problem into manageable chunks, and then also have a realistic expectation that this problem is going to stay for a while. It is not going to go in tomorrow or a week. I'll have a course correction action, and then which I'll be applying consistently. It's like a plant which needs water every day, right? So you can't expect it to grow into a tree the very next week or something. So once that happens is when you can come out of the problem, and then only that experience makes you realize that when you see a pattern next time, you will not delay, you will not procrastinate, because you know that any delay is only going to cause more delay. It is only going to exponentially increase and going to hinder a lot of other valuable, rich experiences life can offer. So why these patterns exist, that is out of the scope of what we can only see that there is a problem and there is a solution, and this is the path to the solution. So I have had like a ton of these things, and I still deal with these problems even today, because just knowing does not help. Acting is the only thing that helps, and despite acting, new problems come in different forms. So they get more complex and more abstract as you have more exposure to the world and the patterns of the mind and everything. So I also procrastinate, I do all of it, but deep down there always is a time when I take action. It may be delayed, but I like to take intense action to burn it all very quickly, right? Because like a rocket, you need a lot of thrust for it to fly initially, and then once it is solid, then you kind of fly, glide and all of it. So again, the imagination is when we are trying to solve a problem, it feels very difficult and very painful, and the projection of the mind is, oh, it is always going to be this painful forever from now on, which is a false assumption.
Yes.
The assumption is false. So if you can see that, then you will see that the hard part is actually just the initial part, like the first 5 days or the first 1 week or 1 month. It's a very short period compared to the existence we have and our lifelong commitments of goals we have, right? So it only is a very short sprint of pain you will have, and then that converts into exorbitant amounts of pleasure, exorbitant amounts of ecstasy, or whatever that pleasant set of feelings are. Then you don't need anybody to tell you that you need to do it, because it is already giving you that pleasant experience, and you are always chasing contentment, so your brain already in autopilot goes towards those experiences. So and similarly with everything we do, right? Like you should know the pain of eating junk food and the benefits of eating healthy food. Then you see how well it acts in the body. If you are not aware after you eat healthy food or any kind of food, how will you be able to differentiate which is good? So
it all basically jots down to what kind of life you want to have. And if you know that this is a life you want to have, like first of all, like I need to ask that question, that this is the life I want to have. And once you have asked this question, and once you've gotten a certain answer, that it kind of becomes my fundamental responsibility to do it. Because if I don't do it, then in a way I'm a criminal, you know. I'm a criminal to myself. And we talk about these things, you know, that love, friendship, having a smooth things with the world. But that can only happen when, again, it all comes down to if I am healthy. Like if I am taking responsibility of myself, if I am having that self-love, which is the daily discipline, that this promise I'm making myself today, they don't have to be very, very big promises. But these 3 promises I make to myself, whatever they can be. They can be those smallest steps. Like for example, I take these long walks. Like if you see now, so you are sitting that you are going to walk 5,000 kilometers. It sounds so big, and it is actually very big. How do you do it then? You simply wake up in the morning, you start walking. By the time sun comes, you already walk for 5 kilometers. Then somebody has invited you for tea. Then you rest. Then your walk begins again. So you're not walking 5,000 kilometers. You're walking like 5 kilometers, or sometimes 1 kilometer, sometimes 100 meters. You know, like again, like we were listening to Bruce Lee, he was saying this beautiful thing, that every day your body is going to react differently. Someday it is going to feel extremely active, very inspired, want to do so many things. Someday it doesn't want to do anything, you know. And then he says, like, learn to move along those rigidities.
And flow like water.
Like in the beginning, you don't fight the hard things that are difficult to change.
Yeah.
In the beginning, you find things that you can change, because when change happens, it motivates us. When you realize a little bit thing, when you are able to, let's say, go in the position of a plank. Imagine you had never done the plank in your life, but today you are able to do plank for 3 seconds, or simply go in that position. So there is already transformation happening. But what usually happen is, the moment I come in the plank, I want to take a photo of it and post like Bruce Lee did. And when the comparison happens, second day we try to act like Bruce Lee, like you said, then we forget that what is my need. Usually the resolutions comes from comparison, because everybody else is doing, I will also do. But when you do something need based, then your actions are very humble and respectful, and they are daily.
Yeah, totally. I think, as you said, it mainly depends on how do you see life, what is your role here, and what do you want from it. Fundamentally, if these things are if you ask yourself, everybody has to ask oneself, nobody can follow somebody's purpose or need and all of it. So if it is asked, and then then of course the needs are seen. We never shy from eating food when we are hungry, right? Because we know it's a very real need. But we may shy away from bathing and doing some other chores and everything. But excretion and consumption, these are inevitable. You cannot hold controlling your urine. Even if there is an earthquake, you will be. I mean, literally also you will. But I think.
And also, like, greatest things are achieved by certain discipline only. For example, I will again come back to my book. I was writing this book. 6 years I've been contemplating about it, and but it happened when I made a very sincere choice that no matter what happened, every night I'm going to stay, and I will not sleep until I write 2 pages. Some days the whole night will go, and it will be 6 a.m. and I have not written a word. But I will not give up. It was more like a fight, but eventually, like you said, in the beginning you might have to act like a rocket at times. It's not very sustainable.
Yeah.
But sometimes you have to try little hard, because the habits we have accumulated, these are decades of old habits. They will not simply go in 3 days. If you have built a very strong house, it won't break with single thing. You need to bring bulldozers. And bulldozers are powerful machine. So what discipline does is, like, a push of bulldozer is equal to like 3 years of discipline. So to gain the power of that bulldozer, I need to have that 3-4 years of discipline to actually break the wall. But if I think in 3 days I can be like bulldozer, that won't happen.
That won't happen. It also reminds me of this thing, right? When we think about changing habits, let's say we are not doing anything, right? And we assume that we are not taking any action. But being idle is also a form of action, right? So that itself is forming into a habit, that you are not taking action, or you are not being active, or you are not acting on the things you are doing. So subconsciously, it is impossible for you to not do anything. Like when you are alive, when you are breathing, you are at least breathing, you are at least alive. So the reason it becomes very hard to change a habit is because we assume that nothing existed and I am building something. No, the opposite of what you want existed. And it is only going stronger and stronger every single day, because subconsciously, for reasons of procrastination, fear, or self-doubt, or whatever, you are feeding it, and you are feeding that monster, and that monster is getting big, and that's the reason each day looks like, can I even make it, right? If not today, next year also if you're still stuck in the same problem, that
Yes.
problem still looks bigger
Yes.
because this habit has gotten bigger. The negative habits have gotten bigger. It's not like there is a neutral state you're in,
Yes.
right? You're either moving towards the positive or towards the negative. It is always like flowing. So I think that's the reason why if we see this pattern, then we feel any delay is only my self-harm,
Yes.
self-sabotaging.
Because at the end of the day, it is a machine.
Yeah.
If you don't use it, it will
It will-
degrade.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But the moment you use, it will work properly.
Mm.
Like its functioning will increase. At the same time, the movement, basically, you are moving.
Mm.
You are moving further only, right? You don't move backwards. You
Yeah.
never move backwards.
Yeah.
The moment you are moving, you are actually going towards your goal.
Mm. Yes.